Okay, so there's a few things about why I'm doing this video. One is I want to get my story out a little bit, right? Just so you kind of know who I am, for those of you that are not my children that might be watching this. And then when I was thinking about that, because I do have a pretty interesting life. Not all great, not all anything to be proud of, but I have a pretty interesting life. But I was just reading the book Outwitting the Devil, and in it he's talking about drifting through life, and that's the devil's goal, is to get people to drift, just drift aimlessly. And you know, whether you believe in the devil, you don't believe in the devil, you are religious or not, when society or anybody talks about the devil, it's a bad thing, right? So you know, that foosball, it's the devil, right? That's it's not an impersonation. I was, you know, that's the lady from, you guys have to help me, the Adam Sandler movie where he's a football player. Anyway, so whatever can be the devil, it just means it's bad. So when I did jujitsu, or, you know, I took a little bit of it, and then, but I went and fought my brother who took a little bit more, or a lot more of it. And I didn't know what he was trying to do. I just knew I didn't want him to be able to do it, right? Because if he's trying to put me in an armbar, well, I don't know what that looks like, but I know that if he wants it, I don't, because I might not know how to win, but I'm not gonna let you beat me, right? I'm not gonna lose. I know how to not lose. I don't know what winning would look like, but I know that losing would look like something, obviously, that you are trying to do and I'm gonna not, right? So, you know, that doesn't work in chess. In chess, the other person eventually is gonna get you. I don't think you can just avoid it forever. But if you're strong enough in jiu-jitsu, you can just not let them do it. Anyway, the point is, if the devil wants me to drift, and the devil wants my children to drift, well, actually, I don't care who he wants to drift. I don't want anyone to drift, because it's the devil, right? So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but when I thought about it, I was like, it's too late for me to live deliberately. I'm 45, right? Sands through the hourglass. I'm looking at most of it in the bottom, and then there's some up left for me to do. So I can live deliberately, but I'm picking a bad time to do it, because I already have to, like, if you saw that on the other video, you already know I have to stretch to get out of bed in the middle of the night to pee, because everything I've got hurts. But that's because I've been drifting through life as one would drift down the rapids, you know, we'll do whitewater rafting type thing, right? I've been drifting at a real high speed. So I've banged the wall a few times, and it's been a fun trip, but I've been drifting. So now, for me to take control of my life and be like, I'm gonna live with definiteness of purpose, I'm gonna get skilled in a trade or something, and I'm what? Go get a trade? You're gonna be 50 starting your new career of crawling around in attics and under houses, and like, what? Nah, I'm not gonna do that. So what am I gonna do? Well, I guess I'm just gonna document what I'm doing, right? So instead of just sort of checking in barely each week and saying, hey, this is what I did this week, you know, or you know, like, as far as I ran 3 miles, which, by the way, I've already ran 2 this week, and I'm running 3. We're doing a 5K tomorrow, so that'll be a little over 5 miles. But I'm going to talk to you about it after I did it. I'm not going to tell you about what I'm about to do, you know. But speaking of what we've done, we played the darts game. We played 301, and so you had to do calf raises as you went down. So we did a total of 300 calf raises. That'll make your calves on fire. Luckily, I don't have any calves, so therefore, it was just a smoldering pile of ash. So, how did I get to Charleston, South Carolina from Big Lake, Alaska, Glen Allen, Alaska, really? Okay, so I was born into a family in Alaska, Glen Allen, Alaska, 30 days before they lost everything in a fire. No insurance. So, like, you would say poverty, but within 8 years, my dad had worked himself to financial freedom, and when I was 16, they were millionaires. So, I don't really come from poverty, because my dad was an absolute fighter, and I mean that in every sense of the word. And he is awesome. And when he talks about what I should be doing with my life, I just feel so ashamed and so guilty, because I don't know what I should do. Because here's what I want to do. Keep drifting. This has been a fun ride. But he kind of thinks you should have something, like, you know, you can't just live for the weekends. You can't just live for Saturday when you get to go do something, you know? You need to like have a goal. Like, I want to do this or that. Well, he wanted to have his family financially free, and he did it. He was going to box in the Olympics. There's a whole lot, and I say was gonna because he got blown up in Vietnam, which is why I have a thing for the veterans. I mean, I also am one, which I'll tell you in a minute when I'm telling you about how I got to Charleston, South Carolina. Anyway, I'll talk about my dad some other time, because I could do a whole thing about my dad, you know. I say a whole thing. I only talk for like 15 minutes. It's not like I got a 4-hour sit down. You know, those guys that can talk about things for 4 hours, they impress me. I'm really just kind of talking at you about me. That's the only thing I really know about. Like, I would like to learn a lot, so I'd have something to talk about. But the thing is, somebody else already knows that. So that's how I would learn it. I would have to go research, i.e., look at what other people have already posted or said or done or, you know, reviewed. I don't really know. But I know me, I think, better than anyone. Now, who cares? I don't know who cares. But I hope my children do. And I hope they're like, I want to look back at my dad's life. And so I'm going to go ahead and explain a little bit more of it, and then hope one day they can look back and see these little videos where I talk about my life, and then, you know, what I'm doing, something. I don't know, maybe they'll miss me someday and they'll want to look back. Maybe my wife, so my wife having babies, I'm not going to say into her 40s, because she'll be 39 this year, so we don't know how late she'll be having babies. But she read a thing that said if you have babies after 36, 35, something like that, you have such and such a chance of, you know, living to like 95 or something. It was crazy. So I think she's gonna miss me for a few years. I hope she's gonna miss me, but no matter what, like, once in a while she can just turn this on and be like, oh, he was full of himself, and I'll be like, hey, yo, I was, you know. But that's part of the whitewater rafting down life. Okay, so now I just got to tell you, and I'm going to try and make it brief now because I've wasted so much of your time. All right, so I was born in Glen Allen, Alaska. The business burned down. My parents moved to Anchorage. That happened on New Year's Eve of 1981, 80 to 81. I'm not sure which one. It's 1981's New Year's Eve, so 1980 December 31st. I think that's how you say that. Anyway, so they ended up moving into this lady, her apartment, and they stayed on the floor. My older brother and I stayed on the floor. They used towels, the lady's towels, as pillows and blankets for us. I mean, they had nothing. And then my dad was going to be a water treatment salesman. Well, he kind of got into that. And then one thing led to another anyway. Again, I'll tell you about it soon. He got rich in Amway. So I grew up rich. My first car was a Hummer, 1996. And like, I mean, we had tennis courts, not like good ones though, is the thing. I try and, like, my wife gives me this, like, because I'll say our tennis court was shitty. We weren't like real rich. She's like, your tennis court was shitty, so you're spoiled and rich. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. It was really bad. Like, it was really bad. Anyway, we had like 100 acres on Big Lake, Alaska. My first car was a Hummer. My brother and my brother had, his first car was an Audi. And but my dad was just like, you need to go live your purpose. And I didn't even know what the hell that meant. So I left, you know. I didn't even finish my homeschool. Do you know how like committed to not finishing school you got to be to quit homeschool? I had to leave the state. So I moved to Colorado, and I think I was supposed to do the 11th and 12th grades there. Maybe just, my mom would probably say, you just had to finish 12th, but I'm pretty sure I had a year and a half left. Anyway, I moved to Colorado, and I got a job running heavy equipment. I was only, I was just there to visit, but it was kind of like, come back whenever you're ready. And I was like, sure, okay. So I got a job running heavy equipment, loved it. Did that for about a year, and then I went home for Christmas. My dad said, hey, you need to come home. My Uncle Larry was like, Derek, if your dad says it's time for you to go home, it's time for you to go home. Construction was real slow anyway. It was the winter. I'd been laid off for like 3 weeks. And so I called the Marine Corps recruiter and said, hey, how fast can you get me out of town? And they're like, oh, we can get you out of town fast. And they did. That was January 4th. I waited to see if Y2K was really going to be a big deal, you know? I don't know if anybody knows that we thought it was going to be like the end of the world. So I wasn't going to be off in who knows where at the end of the world. I wanted to be right there with my family watching it happen. So I was right there with my Uncle Larry, Aunt Susan, and their kids, Greg and Angela. Shout out to you guys. Love that family. They were awesome. I love Larry. Larry was so cool. I'll tell you more stories about that later when I talk about living in Denver, Colorado or something. But anyway, so the recruiter got me out of there, but he called my mom for my homeschool records. And so she called me and said, why would a Marine recruiter be calling me? I said, oh, maybe I'm getting drafted. She said, the Marines don't draft. I said, damn it. Okay, so here's the deal. And I told her, I'm gonna do it anyway. I'll just be an 0311 bullet sponge. Shout out to the infantrymen. And that's what I'm gonna do. But if you'll give them my diploma, then I'm probably gonna get a good position, you know? They'll probably make me an officer, Mom, if I have a good high school, homeschool diploma. Like, that was, gonna be a big thing. Anyway, she said, okay, look, I'll get it to him, but you're gonna call your father and tell him. Oof. Okay, so I did. And he told me then, he said, what are you gonna do in the Marines, Derek? And I said, I'm thinking maybe run heavy equipment or something. Now, if I did, that's probably what I'd be doing my whole life. And I think he knew that, because he said, Derek, you already run heavy equipment, son. If you go in, you should get a real job, like working on helicopters, and then you can go back to fly them. And I thought, well, that's, sounds like a lot, but okay. So I went in to be a 46 aircrew mechanic. Due to a bunch of other whitewater rapids drifting, I did not finish out that program. It was like a year and a half. I ended up going to nuclear biological chemical defense specialist, and that is because even as a high school dropout, homeschool dropout, I still scored really high on all the tests. So they said, oh, okay, you're, instead of oh man, I want to tell you what these guys said to me, what the Marines were saying to me at the time. Like they were making fun of me for being so dumb, for being so smart, because my record showed I was a real smart kid, but the shit I did was so dumb, so dumb. But it's because I was homeschooled, and there's nothing wrong with, I'm not saying I was raised in Alaska in the woods. I killed a bear when I was 16 years old. Anyway, we'll talk about this other shit later. I was protecting the family. I wasn't out hunting, too. That bear was a menace. I think it was on cocaine. There might be a movie about it. Some of that's true. The part about me killing a bear is I don't think the bear was on cocaine. He was pretty hefty, and most cokeheads aren't, from what I know. Anyway, moving on. So I joined the Marines, went in to be a crewman, didn't work out, went NBC, didn't fall in love with that, but I loved, I kind of liked teaching, even though it was crappy classes that nobody wanted to hear. I got some joy out of trying to find a way to present these crappy classes that nobody wants to hear in a entertaining way, right? So like, it was a real challenge for me. Some crap happened there. I can tell you those stories some other time too. But right now we're just trying to still get to Charleston, right? We're still trying to get to Charleston. Okay, so anyway, thing is, Marine Corps career ended at 13 years. I didn't get promoted to staff sergeant, so I had to get out. I went from there right to Afghanistan, because at that time I had 2 kids and I was paying $2,000 a month in child support, and I did not find a job like nuclear biological chemical defense specialist, like even nuclear biological chemical, NBC, we said that stood for nobody cares. So what you're gonna do afterwards, I'll talk about that more later anyway, but I didn't really like the job ideas on the outside. So I got a job working for a guy, I'll tell you all this in another one too, it's pretty cool. He said, look me up when you get out. He was a Marine I served with, and he got me a job in Afghanistan. And here's the thing, and I'm just gonna breeze through this. He told me, hey, yes, I could use you out here, because I looked him up on Facebook. And I was like, hey, he said, the girl that was working for me, she returned back to the States. Well, that girl that returned back to the States is now my wife. So, right? Which she came back. We met in Afghanistan. And then when I was coming back, I didn't really know what I was coming back to, because I had been stationed in San Diego when I left for Afghanistan. But while I was there, my ex-wife was like, hey, Derek, I'm taking the kids and I'm moving to Florida. You can say okay, or you can make me go to the courts and go through a big hassle. I said, just go, right? Just go to Florida. Well, she went there and married some joker, right? There's more about that I could tell you too. I probably won't. We'll see. So, that's not my story to tell. That's not my story to tell. So, I didn't really have anything in San Diego anymore. I wasn't a Marine. I didn't know what I was gonna do when I came home. But then I met this girl out there, right? And she was actually not in Charleston either, but she was in North Carolina. And not a big deal, but anyway, she got me hired on here with her, because then she moved down to South Carolina, Charleston, and then it's basically what she does. She finds people jobs. So she found me one conveniently in the same office as her. So anyway, I owed her. I married her for it. there is so much more I could talk about with that. But yeah, so I guess that's how that went. It took a lot of years. Did I give you any dates? I don't think I told you when most of this stuff happened, but anyway, I'll tell you sometime. All right, I gotta go home. It's Friday night. I gotta go home, kiss the wife, the baby. Talk later.